and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Monday night, we are back in action as always. Same time, same place, same heads in same rectangles, if you will. I'm your host as always, Timuchin here in Chicago, where the weather is literally fucking with you. So it will be some days you're like, fall has started, and it's like 50s. You're like, it's fall weather. Time to put the hoodie on. So the weather says, yeah, it's getting chilly, huh? You should put that sweater on. So you put it on, then it's like, boom, today it's 80 degrees. Now take that shit off. So it's been back and forth, but gotta love Chicago. It's great weather to get sick. Blurry, but not sick, is Gally over here. Do not adjust your TV settings if you're watching us live.
Yeah, no, we're going to figure this thing out eventually. Yeah, doing well. Weather's like 80 today. Not a joke. It was 80.
Same here. Unreal.
And it was very, very awkwardly cold and gross at times late last week. I was in Maine on Thursday, and it was 43 degrees when I woke up in the morning, and today it's 80. So, just makes sense for no sense, except for I'm not really happy about it.
Yeah, like I say, it's great weather to be sick, especially when your spouse is going around coughing up a lung, spreading germs all over the place. So I've actually been able to shake it up, but Angie is unfortunately still coughing up a storm. But Bickler is with us as well. Non-coughing Bickler. What's happening?
Not coughing. It is 80 degrees here, just like y'all. It's been a little bit up and down. It was cold most of the week last week and then warmed right up, and that's the weather report.
Ryan says, and I could not agree more for somebody who recently played it, that Bickler looks like a guy on Red Dead that would try to sell you snake oil. As a hardcore player of the game, that's actually what he's going for over here. Mission accomplished, Bickler. Way to go. A lot to talk about and a lot to get to. But I didn't want to start with this because we did get an email over the weekend. Actually, the email came this weekend, but we got a message over the weekend for a fundraiser. And I talked about it a little bit this morning as well, but I do want to throw this over here. I'm putting the link. So if you're listening to us on Spotify, iTunes, wherever, the link is on our Facebook page as well as like the YouTube page. And if you are, actually, you should do us a big favor. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe over there and follow us as well. And then give us a thumbs up and all that kind of good stuff. Every bit helps. But more importantly, about every bit helping, this is for Zoe's place in Liverpool. They have like a fundraiser going. They actually do have a 12-hour podcast because not everybody can pull off 24 hours, people. The Redman actually has a 12-hour podcast with a lot of guests headed by Jamie. To be fair to Jamie, when he did send us the initial video about the concept and the giveaway, like the fundraiser, he did say he might steal that idea and use it over there. So, but nobody had chairs to cover their asses for 24 hours. So they're doing 12 hours, but it's kind of cool because there's all kinds of people like Goldbridge and stuff like that, Arsenal TV and stuff like that. So everybody kind of getting together. They are shooting for $5 million to be able to keep the place up and going until the 9th of November. I think they're at like 3 or it's at like 2 right now. So they're 31% on the goal. But honestly, like it was like 1.6 or something like that earlier today. So it's going on pace. But if you can afford to, $1, $2, $5, $100, whatever you can, similar to what we did with our fundraiser. I mean, it is basically a hospice for children. And I was talking about it this morning and we're talking with Mateusz. I mean, you have like 3 boys, Bickler. I cannot even comprehend the concept. I mean, the hospice concept is depressing, obviously, by itself, but especially for his kids. I mean, like I'm not even exaggerating. My brain cannot even kind of like comprehend the concept of how brutal that would be and why something like this is so valuable.
Yeah, I try to think about that, and I feel like I'm just going to turn into a huge emotional puddle. So, like, I'm going to steer clear of that. But yeah, it's got to be. I mean, I think it's got to be pretty important for an institution to have that framework to be able to support a family going through that, right? So, I think places like that are pretty, not only physically important but equally spiritually important as well.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's all about. I mean, similar to. It doesn't really maybe solve the situation, Gally, but basically it's all about kind of like easing the pain and kind of like what Bickler is saying, kind of like making the transition. Like I say, I can't get my head around it, man. It's just like so hard to even imagine.
I don't have children, and you guys know that, but I've got a lot of kids in my life, my nieces, nephews, people that I love very much, and I come from a huge Italian family. So I think back even when I was a kid, and even a kid got like sick or had something going on, it would always be something like really emotional to deal with. So I couldn't even imagine from the standpoint of being a parent and the the process of hospice to me is basically the comfort at the end, and there is no comfort when it's the beginning, and that's usually what it is when it's a young person's life that you're dealing with this with. So as a kid who grew up like a big Red Sox fan, and in the shadow of the Jimmy Fund, you hear a lot of stories and you see a lot of things. Like I've gone through a lot of those telethons. I think I volunteered one year and like took phone calls for the Jimmy Fund telethon. And you hear and you see these kids and you see what they go through, so you realize that the work that they're doing at Zoe's Place is really, really amazing. And I think it's a great thing that we're helping them, and I hope that the viewers and the listeners will all rally around this the way they did the 23 Foundation for us in the summertime, and get behind this cause and donate some money, people. Whatever you can, $1, $2. You can do the Gordo $1 a month, and it will go a lot further than you think.
Exactly. I think it all adds up. I think we showed that with our fundraiser when we did the 23 Foundation one this summer. And like I say, Jamie is actually like kind of like spearheading the Redmen one. I think they're doing it like a 12 hour. I think it is this weekend. Don't quote me on that. I probably should have gotten the date.
Hopefully on the 11th or 12th hour. There's quite a few people tired enough to accidentally submit payments 3 times,
But yes, not everybody can. But speaking of, by the way, we did get this from Jamie.
Out to the American Scousers, big thank you from us for the donation, $5,000, much appreciated, thank you.
I mean, that was like nice. He was finally in town because we had one more jersey left to get signed out of our like silent auction. But hey, the lucky bum Gordo, who had won that 7-0 jersey, got it like literally personalized. But yeah, this was basically like the $5,000 that we were able to raise. And hopefully we're planning for like bigger and better things, but I figured it's a good chance to kind of like share this as well. If, like I say, if you're following us on Spotify or listening to us as a podcast, you can always like tune in to YouTube and see all these fine folks, supporter clubs, non-official supporter clubs, and a bunch of companies, bunch of individuals as well, which was like really nice to have contribute and $5,000. But going back to the Zoe's Place thing, obviously we're not doing a fundraiser ourselves, but we were contacted basically because, we kind of like try to use our powers for the good, if you will. So I figured like we will share this throughout the week. And even if you can go over there and put $5 and stuff like that, anybody who hears puts the $1, $5, it'll all add up because they do have a hefty goal, because obviously it is a much bigger operation, whereas the 23 Foundation obviously gets a lot of requests and supplies funds to them, whereas this is kind of like a year-round operation that's what Bickler was saying needs a lot to. But yeah, please do what you can. If you need more information, feel free to message us on Facebook or any other social media, and I can kind of like give you more direct links and stuff like that. A lot of like big guys like Steven Gerrard and Jamie and stuff like that behind us. So having said all that, doing that and hoping that everybody contributes, let's get to the weekend and talk a little bit about that. One of the brighter parts of like my Sunday, at least, was like the game. A lot to talk about, but let's start with this. They were talking about it throughout this international break, Bickler, that our schedule was easier and stuff like that. But has this weekend kind of shown that, one, we were able to win a tough matchup, and those matchups that look easy on paper are not so easy, where City gets the 3 points on a last minute debatable thing that we can like talk about, would rather not, as well as, and Arsenal could not get the points that on paper looks like would be easy. So ultimately there's nothing easy. You just got to get the 3 points against whoever shows up.
Yeah, I mean, I look at our schedule, and I don't think our schedule is like glaringly weaker than anybody else's run out, right? I mean, it hasn't necessarily been the gauntlet, but like I don't think you can put too much stock into the schedule until you're in the final month looking at a run out and trying to project who's going to win that title. There's enough points up for grabs throughout the season. it doesn't matter who you're playing. If you're not conceding goals, you're going to be a tough out. And I think that's what this Liverpool side has done, is not concede goals, right? Obviously, we did versus Chelsea, but I thought they responded well, obviously. I thought they took Chelsea's best punch. I thought Chelsea caused us a lot of problems, but I was really happy with the response throughout, even though it was kind of I thought we probably were on our back heels that opening 20. I thought for the duration of the match, everyone really responded pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like, and here's the thing, it did look like that, and I agree. It looked like we didn't control midfield and stuff, but some of it obviously was by design in some ways, Gally, where we said we don't want to be countered on. We'd rather be the one countering, which is something that we would probably not do. I think that's what's going to, over time, differentiate Slot from Klopp, where we do change how we play based on the fixture, maybe perhaps, and we'll talk about this later on, but maybe perhaps based on the upcoming fixtures and stuff like that.
Yeah, all in all, really pleased, really good performance. I'm with Paul there. I thought it was kind of a helter-skelter moments. I think overall we deserved the win. We deserved 3 points. I also think I talked about him and he left.
He's opening a can in the background, but that's
I
all
love it. I don't understand when they leave and we still hear them. It's the best part. And somehow you look like you changed. Like now you no longer look like the snake oil salesman. You look like the guy from the brewery. But no, I think my biggest thing about yesterday's performance was that I do think it was the first time we played a side who was at least coming in on some upward form so far this year. Someone that was like coming in, playing well and feeling pretty good about themselves. Chelsea was on the upside. They'd gotten right up to the top of the table. People were talking about if they won this weekend, were they actually in the title race, or could they finish second or third from how they started? And if I'm a Chelsea supporter, I'm okay with the performance outside of the fact that Cole Palmer decided yesterday was the first day to look like a kid who should be on Man City's bench and not the marquee player of a big club in a title race. And I think that's just something that they'll learn. And I think Maresca will learn it. They were down starters, but that doesn't take away from the fact that we went out there, we did what we wanted to do, and we held the manager's priorities in check. And I think when they've done that so far this year, when they've done the things that Slot seems to want them to do, be tidy in possession, create when you have opportunities, don't be too attack-minded and offensive in different areas and reckless at times. I think we saw it, and it was just another professional win. And to Paul's point, I think the best thing was the response after the goal. Because at times last year, this team would have dropped their head and conceded a second goal at home to Chelsea. And instead, they went on the attack. From the
Is
moment
that a part of like the control that we use, Bickler, then? I mean, what do you give that to? Because, I mean, squad-wise, it is the same squad. Not for the most part, for the entire part. It is the same squad. So, obviously, they have that maturity, right? But, like, I agree with Gally. There are times where we would get a bit shakier. Do you think it's just the overall style that we play, which is more designed on control? It's a bit easier to perhaps respond as opposed to like a hectic style where, if you're kind of like out of control hectic, it can really backfire.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the tactical framework is a lot more resilient and durable, right? I don't think it's as easily torn open on the counter because we're not essentially gambling so much. It's almost like the Rafa blanket theory where we're not pressed up so high. So it's like there's not, the back line isn't up as high. So I do think that plays a little bit into that. I did think it was a pretty brilliant troll job on Maresca's part to trot out the starting midfield that we tried to buy over the last few years. Like I don't believe when I saw Levy, I was like, that is not an accident. Like, we talked about Cole Palmer not having the best game. Like, I got to give a lot of credit to Curtis Jones because there's a lot of that game where Curtis Jones was just supposed to be under his feet, and he was. He looked like Cole Palmer looked like he was constantly like juggling not only possession, but like a kid brother under his arm that was trying to get, I mean, Curtis Jones just made it a problem for him all day.
And I think the biggest part of that is, actually, I felt like Curtis was pushing up. Obviously, he was involved. Well, he scored the goal, and then he wasn't in the penalty incident. So I will get to the refereeing decisions because I do want to get your guys' take on a couple of them. But I felt like despite that, we never got caught. I only remember one situation where he took a shot and he kind of like skied it. Normally, probably, but Palmer is like scoring that one inside the box. But we did not give him a lot of chances where he was able to just look up. And that's with, at times Jones pushing up. Like when he did push up, his area was very well covered, but mostly he was very disciplined. And I thought, I want to get to like some of the individual performances that just blows my mind. Like Jones, for example, getting a lot of shit from people. Like it reminds me of like the Gomez ordeal where they're like, is he out there? He must be the problem or something like that when things are not going well. And the bad thing is, Gally, things were going well. So I still don't understand why the excessive bitching about Jones and Szoboszlai and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone comes out of yesterday and actually has any one player that they single out as a terrible performance outside of maybe Jota being pretty weak for 30 minutes but kind of being Jota, like, shithousery and trying to pick up fouls and red cards for other players and kind of dancing himself into issues and then coming up lame and injured because he started 9 times out of 11 matches and we're shocked that he's hurt after watching him for 3 years. So to me, like, I think everyone really attributed themselves really well yesterday. I think the Jones hate is purely down to you pick a player or two and that's just the guy you rail on and then because so many people rail on him in social media and get out there and call him, the Englishman that's in the team. And the only reason he's there is because he's scouts and all this stuff. And before you know it, it's almost like a tsunami and it picks up and then people just keep running with it because it's an easy narrative. I don't know how anyone didn't watch that match yesterday and say to themselves, Curtis Jones was the best player on the pitch and might have put in one of the best performances they've seen all season long. Like, I thought he was pretty much an 8 to a 9 out of 10. And that would even be loose because I don't know what he did wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, he was good on the ball, off the ball, defensively. He did everything. You did not say, man, I wish Mecca was out there. And I think that's, like Serzi is talking about Gravenberg doing well with Mecca. And I think that was like one of the biggest things. I think that's a lot of credit to Jones. I think the fact that we did not say, man, we're really missing Mecca out there. And I think it's good for the long run because we did kind of talk about how, before we go at it with Bickler again, but I don't think Endo fits how we want to play there. But now you have 3 guys you can rotate into 2 spots. The main concern was you only had 2 guys who can play there. Jones shows that he can kind of fill in for Mecca and take that role. But I think, he did that well. It does go back to, we were critical of Jones way back. And we even said, when he was like kind of like still trying to do all the tricks and stuff like that, like a kid playing Ultimate Team on FIFA, we were like talking about him, maybe getting more chances than any other player because he was a scout. And at the end, he made good of those chances. He adjusted his game. And I don't understand how people kind of complain about that. The second guy, before we get to the refereeing stuff, I guess let's keep going on the players, is Szoboszlai. Bickler, what is your assessment of Szoboszlai?
I think my assessment of Szoboszlai is just how long is it good enough? How long is all the things that he does off the ball, like the energy he brings, the pressing, the winning the ball back, the ball retention when he has it, in really the space that he does create through some of these runs? Like, how long is all of that like good enough in this setup? Does that make sense? Like, I think for us, like, we see that now, but like, I think ideally when you're looking at a player north of 50 million pounds, it's probably not good enough. You know what I mean? And like, I think he gets more shit than he deserves right now, but then I also kind of, on the other hand, understand where that expectation is based off what we paid for him and what he looked like off the first 3 or 4 starts, right? So, I think everyone judged him on the face of the transfer fee and what we saw for the first month he was playing. And I don't think we ever got that back. I just don't know. Like, I can't help but think it's just a square peg round hole issue. Like, I just don't see. I know that we think of his. I think we thought we were getting a box to box mid. I don't know that he's that anymore, and I don't know that we ever get that. And so if he's not that, where does he play? And I don't know that it's where he's playing right now.
See, I'm a bit more optimistic with that, with his future, because I feel like we had a guy in the beginning, right, who was really good moving forward, but then we were leaking goals left and right, and we were like, well, he's no handle, doesn't do the defensive work and cover for Trent and stuff. And this year, we're kind of seeing it more where he's doing really the good stuff defensively and off the ball stuff. But then, some of the decision making or some of the passes and stuff like that, once he gets the ball, is dude, you're making it kind of hard to root for you or stick up for you, kind of a thing. Some of the passes he did, I almost get the feeling, Gally, and I don't know if this is overall conditioning or being more comfortable or whatever. But I was talking about it this morning too. How in basketball, you'll have a good scorer, and then you kind of make him work on defense. So you kind of take away a bit more of their offense because they're using more energy. I almost feel like sometimes maybe he's using so much energy defensively that he's not used to overall in his career. That when he has the ball, the legs are a bit heavier, the mind is a bit slower because you kind of use what he had for the most part in the tank to kind of win the ball or do the off the ball stuff.
So I'm going to go completely neutral here and kind of give you the sideways answer. The truth of the matter is you're probably absolutely right. Right? That's probably the truth. At the same time, I think it's absolutely lame to think that this guy loses the ability to score because he has to defend. And his decision-making wasn't that great last year outside of a couple matches where he was outstanding like a world beater. So I think for me, the biggest question I have is does he have the instinctive prowess to actually be a number 10 in the Premier League and play that way? Because the number 10 role is kind of a dying breed in football. And Arne Slot still actually implores it, or at least has a facet of it. Maybe not the traditional old Messi, you don't have to do anything because he works really hard.
When we get the ball, we'll give it to you.
My point. It's not Spanish number 10, people. I'm talking Premier League number 10, where you still have to work hard and do things unless you're Kevin De Bruyne. But I do think there is going to come a time, and I don't think it's long from now, for all the people who want to rip the cord on Darwin Núñez, right? I think there are still the same questions about Szoboszlai because I think the money, his position in the club, and the fact that he was bought the way he wasn't an Edwards type of buy. It isn't their type of profile player. I'm not sure Núñez is either, by the way. And I think you might start to see that as they start to reshift this club with which players stay and which players go. I think he has a lot of attributes that work. I think Slot, we all said it was one of Slot's number one goals. And I think Slot's still just as confused as Szoboszlai is sometimes, to your point, because maybe he's being asked to defend too much, so he forgot how to attack.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a matter of not forgetting. I feel like it's almost like if he has to focus on one thing, Bickler, that's because here's the thing. Obviously, Slot is happy with what he's doing, that he's out there 90 minutes. And perhaps maybe that's because Elliott is injured and there's no substitute for what he does that can be he can be replaced with somebody off the bench. But he's obviously doing a lot of the stuff that he's asked for for him to still stay out there. Because we've seen Slot, when you're not doing what you are supposed to, he can yank you in a second.
Well, yeah, I think we had that comment the other day on Discord. It's if he's not being substituted out, everyone seems to think he's the worst player out there. And if he's not being substituted out, it's probably because he's doing the things that he's being asked to do correctly, right? I think we can assume that. So, yeah, I think I don't think this is the end of the road for him. I mean, I think there's still plenty of time. I still think there's a lot of layers to the story. I do think he's one of those players that's an easy write-in, when you're looking for a scapegoat, whether it was Dejan Lovren or Moreno back in the day, we've always had the one, it was Henderson for a long time, right?
Yeah.
so I do think he's one of those players that will do that just based on his transfer fee. And I think when we got him, we all hoped that we were getting this midfielder who was going to consistent. I think when we get these sexy midfielders, everyone thinks this guy's going to come in and he's going to score from 40 yards once every 3 weeks, right? And we just know that.
Is it because you guys keep bringing the money? Like, if we had signed this guy for 30, 40, would we be like, he's doing well, there's no problem. But because he came so expensive, we're like, well, that's not enough. You got to do this as well.
Well, yeah, and I think he had a pedigree of being a goal-scoring midfielder, right? Like that's what really his pedigree was, even though he was playing a completely different role in that midfield when he did play it.
And I'll just say, and I don't disagree, but he did have the pedigree. And this season, because of the positions he's been in, at times, he's been in positions to score goals, and he hasn't. I mean, if he scores that wide open header against Forest, we probably win that match because we go 1-up right after the beginning of the second half. He also had another sitter late in that game, and then he had the, audacious shot from 40 yards away that he tried to make when the game was on the line, and we needed him to swing the ball out wide so we could try to drag a point. So, he's had his ups and downs this year. I actually think his overall play has been a net positive, but because he hasn't done anything to make people forget about how bad the second half of last season was, he can't get ahead of himself. And I think that's the absolute opposite of McAllister. McAllister was the only shining thing out of last season's big, Jurgen Klopp-sized turd at the end of the year. And McAllister was the one shining moment. And out of that, I genuinely would say he's been our player of the season so far, because I think he's our most technical footballer. I think he's right up there as the best overall footballer at the club. And I think he's as important as anything, which I think, to your point earlier, Tim, it's maybe the best thing you've said so far. The Jones performance yesterday gives you real hope that they can rotate that back two with 3 really solid players, and eventually in the lower games even play like a Morton to give them all a little even more of a break. Because I think that's how we have to be, because we're going to have to grind to get the results if we want the trophies and the prizes we want at the end of this year.
Yeah, I mean, I still have a lot of hope because of all the other things I see, and having seen the potential going forward. I do see, I know, you guys, the Nunez's name came up, and, that's more of a discussion for me in terms of, does he fit, can he fit, and stuff like that. Because obviously we saw a very different Nunez this weekend that would fit the system, but is that the same Nunez you get all the time? That's another discussion. But I do feel like Szoboszlai can actually work in the system, and that's still your probably top midfield if it's an important game is still Gravenberch, Maka, and Szoboszlai, and I think you get a lot of good work rates out of that. And it's not because I realize he plays almost like a number 10, but I kind of still find him a bit more like a genie in that role, where he's still doing a lot of the tough work, and not just the old school fancy 10 number 10 we were talking about. So obviously a weekend with a lot of important refereeing decisions, a lot of them in our game. I think the biggest discussion, which, is pretty bad when the discussion is which ref is shittier or who is the shittiest ref. And we really have a huge discussion going because there's so many freaking candidates in the Premier League. But a lot of calls that's going to affect the title race. I mean, the whole Saliba thing, we'll talk about it when we come to the Arsenal game and all that. But real quick, I want to get your guys' take. I'm sure you guys will really delve into this in the Premier League show as well. But the first one, let's start with that. The one that got Jota injured, Bickler. Should that be a yellow, red, orange? What should it be?
It's a yellow because of the proximity of Colwell to the play.
Do you think, because I agree, but do you think if it was Nunez or Mo, somebody faster, that would be more of a question if anybody can catch up to him, would they have earned a red? Because I get the feeling that if it was Mo or if it was Nunez, where if he's gone, nobody's catching him, we might have gotten a red card based on what happened in the Arsenal game.
I thought the flow of play was too far down the right channel for that to happen.
Yeah.
It wasn't direct enough. Yeah. If you're looking at the pace of play and the direction of play, I the proximity to Colwell and the direction of the ball itself made me think that it wasn't like a clear through on goal either way.
How about you, Gally?
Yeah, I saw it the same way. I mean, when I first saw it in real time, and I was in a pub, so of course it was, the masses started screaming red, red, off. And at first I thought to myself, wait, let's see this again. I know we just saw what we saw yesterday with Saliba. Yep. The ball is actually like going away from Jota to the end line. So even if he tracks the ball down, he's actually going towards the corner, which the refs have the right to take that into account when it comes to other defenders and the whole denying of a goal scoring opportunity. I'll be totally honest with you. I think it's a yellow. I also think it is Class A Jota, because I think he runs straight into the player because he knows, to your point, he's not Darwin Nunez and Mo Salah, and he's not beating either of those defenders. I think he runs into the player, and I think he actually initiates the contact. It's smart play. It's great center forward play. It's the dark arts that make him special.
Yes.
But he initiated that, and when I first saw it, I was like, I'm not sure it's a foul. I hope it's a red card. And it was almost for the shithousery, and so we could rip it apart. But I think they made the right call on the pitch because he called it a foul. I think if you watch it back 5 times, you question whether it was actually a foul.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, how big of a fan Matoush is. Oh, here we go. Like, it's like somebody said Jota falling, and Matoush comes to call.
I almost called it out and said, did he bring it up on the morning show?
Oh, yeah, of course. I think that was like a half-hour discussion about Jota, and he made some good points, but I still think he does initiate the contact, and I do agree to that. And then they get kind of tangled up, but he has every right to be. And we'll go on to the next situation. I'll explain exactly why. I'm totally okay with them doing that, because when strikers try to avoid the contacts, now they're somehow being penalized and they don't get anything for it. So I was totally okay with them doing that. Shelton says it was too far for Jota. Thursday says last man is the last man. I guess that's why I do feel like the fact that, for example, somebody like even Shelton says it was too far for Jota, I think that somehow, unintentionally or not, it comes into play who is involved there. And if somebody like Nunez was there, it would be more of he brought him down because he knew he wasn't going to catch him. I think everybody on that pitch was like, they'll catch Jota. And I think that does play into the thing, especially when they watch it for like a red card and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, this morning, Prince literally did a frame by frame.
What do you guys have, a bigger production budget in the morning or what?
Well, he's the prince. When you have a prince, he has his people who can just provide all kinds of stuff.
It's true. The butler's doing editing and prep and all kinds of show prep.
Yeah, but I mean, even when we looked at that, I really think I do agree. It is Jota and he takes a fall. But honestly, it is the second situation I was going to. This is what really probably pissed me off the most in this game, actually, is the one right before the penalty, a minute before the penalty, where Mo is on the right corner. He gets past the player who I think is Reece James, if I'm right, or is it Colwell? No, it's Reece James on that one because Colwell is in the box afterwards. In the corner, I can't remember who the player is, but they're on the ground. Mo beats him. They try to trip Mo. They can't. He keeps going. He comes in the box, and this is what we'll discuss. I think it's a foul, and I'm so sick of this. Well, it's too soft, not enough contact and stuff like that. If it's a foul outside the box, it should be a penalty inside the freaking box. I'm so sick of this. Like, for a penalty, that's too soft. If it's a foul, it's a foul. And I thought it was a foul. But anyway, the thing that I was more pissed about, Bickler, is the fact that when that situation is over, if Mo falls down over there, that guy is getting a yellow, right? Because it's intentionally tripping Mo. Why, when we play advantage, we don't go back and show that yellow? I think that was more than the penalty. I was really pissed off with that because I'm like, how does that guy get away with literally trying to trip him?
Yeah, in the difference between being on the pitch and off the pitch shouldn't have anything to do with whether you successfully complete the tackle or not, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I think like it gets into the dangerous play area, but then, yeah, I don't know how you referee that, but there would be it would be nice to see things retroactively get called where there's obvious attempts at professional fouls or things like that. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I thought the refereeing throughout the game was really, really poor, just in terms of the fact that it was wildly inconsistent. I thought we were lucky not to get a penalty called on us in the first half versus Trent, to be quite honest. I thought that could have been called and been justified and not overturned. So, I mean, I think it went both ways, but yeah, I think it was pretty wildly inconsistent, and I thought it was rough throughout the entire match.
Did you think the Mo one was a penalty?
Yeah, I thought they both were. I thought both of those instances were.
How about you, Gally?
I thought the Mo one was a penalty. I understand what you mean about the frustration about how if he goes down, the first foul gets a yellow card. So why don't you just give the yellow card for that foul anyways? It's a clear tactical foul. You can still give a yellow card later after you play an advantage. I think the Mo foul in the box that doesn't get called does feel like there's enough contact there. Anywhere else on the pitch, it's a foul.
Yep.
I do think if it's against us, or do we maybe argue that it's so soft or questionable that maybe we don't want it called? But I think we're okay with it being called if they're consistent. And the guy just wasn't consistent. He was poor across the whole board. And I think we saw that across the whole league. I mean, with the crazy amount of red cards, the crazy amount of VAR interventions, the fact that VAR didn't even take time to review the foul on Mo in the box also makes me question what the hell's going on when we spend as long as we do sometimes reviewing calls that just seem rudimentary and nothing burgers that are never going to be overturned. They get the call right on the goal, right? I mean, when you look at it in the replay, he's onside, and you say to yourself, like, shit, like normally – I give them credit. They get onside, offside right more than they get it wrong, these guys. And it is this close that they actually judge them on now, and somehow they still get it right more times than wrong. But in this case, it was off by a little bit. I thought all in all, refereeing was poor across the board, even down to like the fourth official and how they handled the whole like touch-ups and the bust-ups on the sideline. And the yellow card for Slot for kicking the ball, which I thought was awesome. He clearly shouldn't try to kick a ball on a volley again, right?
This is probably the most animated we've seen him as well. I mean, because they really got to him for a Dutch guy to kind of lose it like that. I was like, holy cow, this is probably the most animated he's been. And I'll be honest though, man, the fourth referee, Bickler has to be the shittiest job that you can have, because you're not even making the calls. He's like, why are you talking to me? He's the one making the calls out there, and constantly you have managers in your ear bitching and moaning. I'd rather be out there.
I bet you every one of those fourth officials would rather have Arne Slot than Jurgen Klopp, though.
Oh. They probably give him a note.
Absolutely brutal.
They probably literally give him a note at the end of every game. Thank you very much for this afternoon, sir.
God.
But Terry says it only took 3 months for Slot to be sick with the PL refereeing. And it was a rough one. Last one, I saw a lot of debating on that one. I never thought it was a penalty when it happened live, and I was shocked that we got a penalty for it. And then when you watched it play, I did not think the Curtis Jones one was a penalty because he gets to the ball first. Bickler, disagree with the call?
Yeah, comes out, does what you're supposed to do, makes himself big, plays for the ball, gets contact first. I don't know where else he's supposed to go there. I didn't think he went out of his way to take the player out. I just saw two players come together, especially on a player who just took a fraction too long to get rid of it.
Yeah, more than several fractions there. How about you, Gally? Yeah, I mean, he could have, I was like, what are you waiting for? It was like he glitched, the button didn't press or something.
In that case there, it's down to Curtis Jones dawdling on the ball too long. Like, that would have been one of those ones. If Jones ends up clattered and hurt there, people would be mad at the keeper and Liverpool fans would cry because Jones was having a great match. But the truth is it would have been on Jones because he's the one who basically took too many touches and then tried to toe poke a keeper as he was coming out to come at him with his legs to make a save.
Yeah.
Paul's right. The keeper does everything right to make himself bigger. And then as Jones kicks at it, he throws his arm up in an attempt to make himself even bigger, which then takes Jones, which he topples over. This is the one I'll give the ref a little bit of a pass on, though, because in real time, if you don't see the keeper get the ball, you see Jones try a shot, the keeper save it with his foot and then an arm flip the guy up in the air, that should be a penalty. But I like how VAR immediately was like, no, come take a look at this real quick. The guy took two views and was like, I'm out. So to me, perfect example of the usage of VAR handled by the Premier League matchday officials 1 time out of 60 this week.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, when I saw it, like when it was, I was like, that didn't look like it. When they called it, I was like, really? Because it looked like he got the ball first. And then obviously, you watch it. I don't know, there was like way too much discussion about that one. I thought that was a no-brainer. It's funny because the other one, it almost felt like we got a penalty right after the first one with Mo. That one was forgotten. Everybody was focused more on like the second half one, whereas the other one, like I was like, that was a penalty, and nobody like discusses that one or complains about that one because it was almost like the second one was a makeup call, which it was not. I thought that was a clear penalty as well, and it was Jones again. So to all those Jones haters, I don't know what the hell you guys were watching. So obviously a big 3 points and heading into a big matchup, especially with Arsenal losing points now being 4 behind. Does those things change the game outlook, Bickler, in terms of what now Arsenal needs out of this game and what perhaps maybe we're okay with taking out of this game? Like, do we play a game very similar to what we did, where we are okay with giving away possession, or we're like, this is Arsenal, they're a lot better on the ball, so we don't want to give them the ball?
I think, first of all, I think it's still October. So I think that I think that changes things. I think 4 points in October, I don't think anybody's hitting the panic button at Arsenal yet. If they are, it's because of the pieces they're missing right now. And I think that my thing is, I don't think that necessarily changes what Arsenal needs out of this game. I think either way, Arsenal is going to need 3 points coming in. But the problem with that is I don't like, it's very unlike Arsenal to come into a big match versus Liverpool in City and set up to go get 3 points. They set up to hit you on the counter, hope they keep a clean sheet, and hope to get you 1 or 2 times on the counter and sneak out the back door with 3 points. And I don't think anything that they've done or where they're at right now changes that philosophy, because I think that they know if they come out guns blazing with that lineup that they have right now, they become more of a liability on the back end.
I mean, that's why I feel like, Gally, that it does kind of like change how Arsenal approaches the game, and it kind of like maybe makes our life a bit easier, because I could have seen a game where Arsenal's like, you guys have the ball, and we're like, no, you have the ball. Like, we'll counter. Why don't you guys attack, kind of a thing, and go back and forth and be almost like last year's City Arsenal game where there was a draw and they were like, Arsenal looked content with that. Now they can't be, because I know what Bickler is saying. It is only October, but if something happens and you lose this game, I mean, I know it's October, but you might as well, especially like how fragile Arsenal can be. You're 7 points behind us. I think you'll be 6 behind probably City. You're like, holy shit, this is not going to happen. This is not the year, kind of a deal.
Yeah, I could get there quick. I think that's why Arsenal is teetering. I mean, they're trying to remind themselves all the time that they're still with this and that things are working. Like, I saw Arteta make the comment the other day that we have to get these red cards out. And then Declan Rice reminded the media that they are undefeated, or no, they have maximum points when they finish matches with 11 men. So, like, if you're making comments like that, then I think they're already a little rattled inside that group. And I think what it comes down to is we all need 3 points in every game, because as good as we're playing, we're 1 point ahead of City.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, draws against each other is just going to help City win this league for the umpteenth time in a row. And to me, that's the most important thing. You just got to go put in performances. I do think Arsenal will feel like they have to win this match now, where if they had beat Bournemouth, they might have thought, like, we can get a draw next week, and that's not a terrible result. I think if they lose, it's a really damning result, and even a draw might set them back potentially as they try to like kick on forward. But they still have a really deep squad, maybe the most talented one top to bottom when healthy. But for once, they're the team being hit by the injury bug, and then City as the second most injured team compared to us, where we're always the one who is usually the one that's most injured.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I feel like Bickler, it will change how they have to approach it, or at least it enables us to say we're okay with a draw. I mean, we would probably say that initially anyway. I would think you don't have to go out to win, but I think it's a lot easier to play how we did like this weekend, for example, when the other team is trying to win and trying really hard to win, feeling they have to win, and they're missing their best center back as well. So it's going to be easier to counter on them.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's what I think it does change. I think it changes the way that they play if they go down. Like, because I think no matter how you look at whether they won versus Bournemouth or not, I think they come into this game not to lose it, right? Either way. So what I think changes those, I think if they go down in this match, I think they get a little desperate in terms of how they respond. I think you see more desperation in the response than you typically would otherwise. So I think it ups the ante for them. And I think if they go down, I think we will see a different response. But I still think this is an Arsenal side who like sets up in these big games not to lose them and try to catch it down the stretch. And I still think it's October. I still think think that they'll probably get healthy, get guys back, and be in a spot to chase this thing down. So still a long season. I just think I don't like my thing about Arsenal is outside from a pocket of last year, they just don't have courage in these matches, like in the way they approach them. They're not like a team that comes in with any sort of bravery and really tries to blow a door off a team. They just at least not at the top of the table, they have it.
Yeah, I mean, they play tomorrow, whereas we play on Wednesday. So we do have that game, obviously, first to take a look at, which is my, I guess, follow-up question, Gally, is what happened this weekend and maybe where we are in the Champions League, does it change how we approach the Leipzig game in terms of a squad? Do we build a squad against Leipzig based on what we want to put against Arsenal?
I mean, I think there'll be rotation regardless. I don't think what Arteta does Tuesday, I don't think will dictate what Schlott does Wednesday. I think he has a plan already, and I think he has a plan for how he's going to attack this team. Now, if you tell me Tuesday that Saka is once again not available and not in the match day squad, then I'll question whether he's going to be available on Sunday. And then you start to really think, because they're a big, big difference when he's not playing. I mean, to be fair to them, they are down, Saka, Odegaard, they had, they really don't have a Martinelli that's like on the boil or his top end kind of play. And then I think you look at, now next weekend against us, they have to play without arguably their best defensive player, though I still think Gabriel is the most important key piece to their defense, because I think he does actually more than Saliba from an organizing and leading standpoint and on the set plays and all that. But I think Saliba is their best 1v1 defender, and their kind of big man they put on the striker most matches, right? And I just feel like that's a huge loss. They lose him for 3 matches. I think that's a psychological blow. And you saw with how Arteta handled that with his substitutions, he doesn't have much faith. He brought in the young Kiwar or whatever the kid's name is, the Swedish defender.
He didn't look so hot.
He subbed him off.
Yeah, he got yanked. That's not a good sign.
I mean, now they could bring Calafiori in, but that means you got to shift Gabriel to the other side because Calafiori really only likes to play on one side. So they got a lot of moving parts. Or you play Zinchenko against Mo, which is my vote. Please,
yes.
Zinchenko versus Mo.
All day. I would be all over that all day. And honestly, they have, just looking at their schedule, they have Newcastle away. Is it 3 games automatic, right? Because he got a red.
Straight red.
So it's us, Newcastle away, Chelsea away are the games that they're going to be missing him for.
All right, so I'm going to amend my statement. They're definitely going to play this game differently because they might think if they lose this thing, they could be out 11 by the time
that's a scary schedule to have him missing.
Newcastle's looking a lot better right now, especially at home.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Shelton said things about Newcastle away is a whole different ball game, I think, as opposed to playing them at home. We can't
take Shelton's Newcastle comments with
I know where we're going.
That's that Eddie Howe bullshit bias. I don't even care if you think he's good, bad, or indifferent.
Kiwior is Polish. I appreciate trying to make Polish national team look better without him.
Fair.
Him
I
and
wouldn't
Matty
have played
Cash,
any
the
of those.
ultimate Polish defensive line over there. But so Leipzig game, then what are we predicting over here? We said some rotation. Gally, so we'll start with you then. I'm assuming like we're seeing Costas on the left-hand side and stuff like that. When you say rotation, what else are you expecting?
Yeah, I'm definitely expecting Costas, which basically means I'm expecting your blood pressure to go up about 15 minutes after the match starts.
Yes, sir.
I think Nunez obviously starts through the center with Jota's injury, but I think he was going to start through the center anyways. And hell, if he had gotten 60 minutes under any pretense and put in that shift, he deserves to start 4 days later off that performance. It's the best performance we've seen from Nunez in a while. We didn't talk about that, but I think Diaz will come back in on the left. I think the ever-present Mo Salah will start at right wing. Obviously, Maka comes back in. Until you show me a day where Gravenberch doesn't play, I'm going to believe that the Dutchman has the first name on the team sheet. And then the back line, I'm going to jump out and say it's time for Kwanzaa to get his moment to come back in from the beginning of a match. I don't know if it'll happen, but I really hope it does. Bradley wasn't on the bench, and I hope that was because he's planning to start him on Wednesday and give Trent a little break. So I see basically Trent, Maka, or Bradley, Kwanzaa, Maka, Nunez, Diaz.
How about you, Bickler?
I just gotta think that, man, based on like the little Joe Gomez cameo, as ugly as it was, I feel like you gotta see him here. And if you don't see him here, you gotta wonder when you see him again. Because
do you put him at center back or is like a right back or a left back?
I don't really fucking care. Like, I mean, I would put him at left
Play him
back.
in the sixth.
I'd
play
put
him
him
in the Maka spot.
I'd play him at left back personally, but
I would too.
I mean, that's where I would play him, but it probably makes not a lot of sense if you've got Costas on the roster and you're trying to rotate
Is the
through.
system better for Gomez to be playing right back or left back, you think, where, pushing up and overlap is not as expected?
Yeah, it probably suits him more, although he was pretty darn good at it when he was playing it last year.
Yeah.
For a stretch. He looked really good doing it. I think it is probably better for him. I wouldn't obviously mind that this is a match where we see Endo, especially given the fact that Leipzig midfield is so young. I think that like Endo could really go in there and just clean up. I don't know if we'll see that though. I think Galley's close here. I think you have the potential to see Gomez get snuck in here somewhere.
I can see because I think Bradley has a knock. Isn't that why he wasn't?
Oh, is that what it was?
I thought that's why he wasn't available this weekend. I don't know how bad it is or if he's out or whatever, but I actually can see Gomez right and Costas on the left. And I think if we see that, I think we do see Konate in there because I don't think he's making 3 changes along the back line. But
fair.
I think the rest of the lineup, I kind of like agree with Gally and you guys. I think that's pretty much what we're going to see, I think. And we'll probably have almost like planned substitutions to make sure the team is ready for Sunday, because obviously they know it's like a huge game and there's gonna be a lot of running and defending and stuff. Go ahead, Gally.
No, I was just gonna ask you, do you think he gives Jones another start just purely off the man of the match performance and deserving it, knowing he hasn't played a lot of minutes, and like maybe even gives Soboslai a rest and plays Gravenberch and McAllister and Jones again and moves him up to the 10? I just thought of that. Like, it's hard on Jones. Or maybe this is the match where he plays McAllister and Jones deep to see how that looks and gives Gravenberch finally a break. I mean,
I can see Gravenberch and Gravenberch and Maka with Jones in front of him and giving Soboslai a break. I mean, I didn't look at the miles, but man, he put on some miles this weekend. And you might want to.
I think that's entirely determined on what you think your best midfield is against Arsenal. Because to me, if that includes Jones, if it's
there.
It doesn't make sense to turn around and play him a few days later.
It's true.
Like if you want him on the weekend. And to me, like what means more to a player would probably be if the manager came over and said, "Hey kid, you killed it. You're locked into the Arsenal game. Rest up, buddy." Like that would mean.
Are you guys putting him as in our best midfield?
He's pretty close right now for me. And I would argue right now that after that performance of him playing in the Macca role and seeing how good Gravenberch looked next to him, I'd kind of like to just once see Macca in the Soboslai role. I know, and I do agree with you, Timuchin, that he probably is the best deep guy, but Jones might have put in the best midfield performance of the whole season this weekend in his spot while he was sitting. Like, I think there is some merit to Slot is still shaking up the dice and throwing them out and figuring things out and figuring out where things go. I still think there's a day where we get completely bamboozled and he starts like Tyler Morton and puts like an attacker in. No, I'm serious. I think it's coming. He was on the bench for a reason. It's not like there were other players he could have put on the bench instead of him that are senior players. He's obviously earning spots. He's scoring goals regularly with the under 21s, and he's dominating matches. Like, he looks like a man among boys playing with the under 21s right now. So I think they do believe he's ready for first team football, albeit it took him 3 years after he met me and realized that he was only slightly bigger than me. He probably was like, shit, this guy in the picture, I better start working out. I hear what he says about freaking 15-year-old kids.
I mean, it could be just Edwards seeing another 30 million from Leipzig coming out the door.
Which is why he'll probably be on the bench and get 15 minutes at the end of tomorrow in a little window shopping mode.
I mean, in some ways, this is probably the best game if you look at the Champions League schedule based on the fact that we got 6 points. You got Real Madrid coming afterwards. In some ways, Bickler, this is probably like the game to do some rotating and roll the dice. And you can bring a guy like Morton in the 60th minute, like I say, those predetermined substitutions and get Macca 30 minutes of rest and stuff.
Yep. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I always like that midweek rotation. We just never see as much fit as I'd like. Although, that being said, I think the times that we have seen rotation from this side, like what I've liked is that Arne Slot has not been afraid to make wholesale rotation changes. And I think I like that for two reasons. A, you're getting your entire first team. If you have like a preferred first team, you're actually getting them rested. And B, you're legitimately solidifying a team B that's played together at game pace in big matches with experience, so that when you do heavy rotation, it doesn't feel like we got this with Schlott, where it felt like some of these guys had maybe shaken hands a couple times in training, and other than that, had never really played together.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was about to say. It does not feel, and I know it's early. I mean, mind you, it's almost end of October now, but it does not feel as disconnected when you do that much rotation compared to before. And I think that's more about the style, the control, as opposed to kind of like manic running and one guy runs the wrong way and we're wide open in the back kind of an ordeal. And I think on the ball, one thing that this weekend, by the way, was we kind of showed that if a team does press us, and that I think we saw that. I thought Mo had an excellent game, by the way, where we could play the long ball to Mo, and he played like almost like a 9, where he could do the hold up and play and distribute the ball and stuff, and we could go over the press. And I think that's good to see because it makes opponents think twice about how to kind of like defend. Go ahead, Gal.
Yeah, no, Mo was really good at that. And Nunez did a good job a few times when the ball was played deep to him with the hold-up play and linking up other players and bringing them into play. I just think that when we see what Slott's done compared to what Klopp's done, and we talk about the squads all the time, and we can all like make the jokes about all the charges and the checkbook manager that Pep Guardiola is and all that. But what Guardiola's always done is create an entire squad that everyone fights for every minute they get on the pitch. And you can almost see it in how they play, and they go in ebbs and flows where it's Doku for 5, and then it's Grealish, and then it's Foden, and these guys are benched for a long period of time. And I think Slot is showing a little bit of that with the fact of even his in-game substitutions. It's like sometimes it's on the 70-minute mark because it's about load management, and sometimes it's on like 55 because Trent's playing like garbage, and he's like, I'm going to put the kid in. He's shown a ruthlessness, in my opinion. I think he's subbed every player this season except for Konate and Virgil. Like, on the year, every single player. And I think that shows. And, I mean, we know Klopp was not a guy who liked to sub, and he didn't sub his stars. It was about 2 years we asked for Mo Salah to get a break. let alone
Yeah.
just get 10 minutes off at the end of a match that we're up. So I think it's really important. I think it's a really good sign for us to see going forward.
Yeah, Johnson's case. Yes, that's right. We have a player. And by the way, I'm speaking of, I don't know if he's ready to go yet. I thought he was going to be ready when we came back from the international break, but I could be wrong. I did not. We'll probably find out in the press conference tomorrow for the Champions League game. But I think it has been, we complained about it a lot in the summer, and everybody did, including us. But I think that has been a huge plus, keeping this team intact in some ways, being able to develop and instill like new methods and new way to play with little tweaks and stuff like that. It's a lot easier to do with a team that's making those tweaks as opposed to a bunch of like 3-4 brand new guys that you're trying to kind of fit into the system at the same time. But having said that, let's finish with some predictions. Bickler, Leipzig away. What's happening?
3-1 good guys.
3-1 good guys. And what do you have, Gally?
I'm going to go with the Orange Slot special. I'm going to go with 2-0.
Special. Shelton goes 3-1 as well. The Timuchin special is popular, but I am going with the slot special as well. I am going with like the 2-0 away win, kind of like playing controlled and stuff like that. And that'll be huge if he can get 9 from the first 3, especially if he can do it with some rotation. That would be like a huge ordeal. But that'll be it for us this week. Do not forget to check. Do not forget to, first of all, head on over to YouTube and give us a follow. We would really appreciate it. If you're listening to us on Spotify, iTunes, or on Facebook and stuff like that, please do that favor for us. Give us a like, a thumbs up, and all that kind of good stuff. And don't forget that when you do go there in this episode, and we will put it on our social media as well, Zoe's Place donations link. Just go on and head over there. $1, $2, whatever you can, because if you do the $1, if you do the $2, I mean, when we did this thing way back in the day, for I think 2 years ago, when we did it for like the earthquake in Turkey, and we did like a fundraiser for that. And I remember like talking, that was basically for the Save the Children, who was helping like kids in that area. And I remember like one of the biggest things he said is like the 2 things that really stop fundraisers are, one, people think, where is that going to go? Like, what's going to happen? I think in this case, you do know exactly where your money is going. It's going to a specific place serving a specific purpose. And the second one is everybody is like, well, somebody else will do it. Don't do that, because that's what really stalls these things. Even if it's $1 or $2, you might not think it's a big deal. What is my dollar going to do? If there's a bunch of people like you, that will go a long way. So please use the link, donate what you can. And then those links will be in our social media coming up in the next few days as well. Have a great week, everybody. We'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow night with the panel. We'll get the Chelsea take. We'll get the Arsenal take. It should be pretty interesting to see what Alan is going to say about Arsenal, all that kind of stuff. So do tune in for that. Until then, have a great week, everybody. Take care.